Hello everybody, I'm Mark Goldbridge and this needs calling out in football. The increase in injuries is diluting the quality of the game for the football fan. We've spoken about VAR and that is definitely diluting the quality of football that we see. But also there is a double hit here, and that is the increased game time, the increased strain on the modern footballer that has led to a factual 15% injury increase compared to the last 4 seasons. We've had over 200 injuries in the Premier League already, and that constitutes a factual 15% increase compared to other seasons. This is bloody ridiculous, and it's only going to get worse. So we're going to dive into this because we've got some fantastic information coming in. And I tell you what, if you love football, then this is what we do on That's Football. This is about calling out and discussing the things that for some reason don't seem to be on the top shelf of the mainstream media at the moment. And also, if you like this sort of conversation, don't forget we've got a new Goldbridge Saves Football podcast out today. Links in the description. Please support that. But back onto this. So this report actually already is a few weeks old, and it comes so it could have increased by now. But basically, the founder of Premier Injuries, Ben Dinnery, has put together this analytical information saying that there's been a 15% increase compared to the past 4 campaigns. And the stats don't lie. There has been a huge increase. And many people think this is because of the high intensity of football these days, the increased games, the World Cup last year, players having to play games every 3 days. And in relation to Newcastle as well, Newcastle, apparently last season, they were the only team in Europe's top 5 leagues where 9 of their outfield players played a minimum of 75% of their domestic league games. And that's absolutely incredible. So I think this is something we've been talking about for a long time, and I'm massively interested in it, and we can bring you more data as well around this. But ultimately, what we're talking about here in a very simplistic way is what we notice week in, week out. More and more teams in the Premier League are accumulating more and more injuries. We've seen it with Brighton, we've seen it with Newcastle, we've seen it with Spurs, Arsenal, Manchester United, Chelsea, and many others. Many other teams this season, it almost feels like we're in May. But from day one of this season, it's been happening. Literally in August, we were getting people out for 2 or 3 months all across the Premier League. Why is that happening? And why is it, when that is happening, that the Premier League are looking to, increase the load on players with UEFA, the Champions League, internationals, winter tournaments? It's more, and we all know why. It's something else beginning with M, and it's money. And I call it out because people will say, well, this is why clubs need bigger squads. But I call it the Alisson effect. If you watched Liverpool against Fulham last week, Liverpool conceded goals that they wouldn't have conceded if Alisson had been in goal. Not because Kelleher's a bad goalkeeper, because it's a step down. Why was Alisson not in goal? Because he's injured. Now, is it a natural injury, or is it because of the stop-start nature of the game at the moment, the increased game time? Who knows? I don't know. But the fact is, we cannot pretend that the Premier League or football in general is going to maintain its high-end quality when we are diluting the quality of players that can actually play. Are Man City a better team with Kevin De Bruyne or not? Well, it's clearly not. Is Kevin De Bruyne's injury because of the volume of games he has to play? Who knows? But what is definitely factual is that this season there is a 15% increase compared to the last 4 seasons in injuries. And that's only going to get worse. So we're going to see less and less of our favourite players because they're going to get injured more and more, which means we pay more for more games with less quality. And we're not even speaking about VAR. Something has to be done here. I'm a massive fan of football. I love watching football. But even I am fatigued by the length of games and the frequency of games and the frequency of tournaments. Next season, they're increasing the Champions League. There's a talk of another World Cup. There's going to be a Club World Cup in 2025. More. And remember, the principles of the Super League was to make Arsenal play Manchester United in Delhi or Ottawa or Sydney. The modern footballer is being asked to do far more at a higher intensity for longer, and we wonder why they're dropping like stones. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. And this article sort of goes into why this issue is. And there are some inconsistencies because West Ham have played a lot of football, but apparently they've not had as many injuries. But you know what I think, and it sort of alludes to it in the article as well, is that I think this is a hangover. I think most of the early season injuries were a hangover. You look at that stat about Newcastle, and you know, a large proportion of their first team played over 75% of their games last season. Newcastle didn't even have Europe last year, but they used a very small squad. Manchester United, we played from Boxing Day last year. We had a midweek game all the way through to the end of May, I think. And we used quite a small squad as well. So I think for Newcastle and Manchester United, it's accumulation. You know, all right, you get a couple of weeks off in the summer, but that's not proper recuperation. You come back into another demanding season. Both clubs have got Europe, and injuries are decimating both squads. And we're not even at Christmas yet. Like, Christmas is traditionally a time for Turkey. It's also a time for lots of games. And I've been saying this for weeks as well. It's almost like some people think, oh, we've just been very unlucky with all these injuries in the first few months of the season. It'll all calm down. It won't calm down. The longer the season gets, the more games that are played and accumulated by these players, the more injuries we're going to get. So it's going to get worse. I don't know. For the life of me, I just do not know why this is not front page news. I don't know. Is it because everybody's on the gravy train? But I want to see Man City play Arsenal with Man City's best team and Arsenal's best team. I want to see Ten Hag if he's going to get the sack with his best team. I don't want to see him getting the sack because he's had loads of injuries to his best players. It dilutes the game in many ways. Managers will lose their jobs. Title races will be undermined, relegations will be undermined, and ultimately as well, as the consumer, are cheated. And we know what happens with VAR, and we feel humiliated and cheated by that, but we're also getting this. This is if you love football, please smash a like on the video, because I think this is really important. And if we get 10,000 views, great. If we get 100,000 views, great. But hopefully somebody out there will think, this is good. I want to talk about this. Did you see that video on That's Football? I'm going to talk about this. And maybe it'll work its way up. There is a definitive, we get these journalists writing stories, and we get the mainstream TV stations and radio stations talking about, well, I've heard a dressing room leak that's made up that Ten Hag is in trouble. It's just speculative nonsense. 15% increase in injuries in the Premier League this season, and it's not even Christmas. Undermining teams. I look at Brighton this year and where they are in the league. If they hadn't had all those injuries, or even half those injuries, they'd be higher up the league. It impacts revenue. It impacts performance. It impacts fans. It's massive. And I don't necessarily have the facts on this, but this is just an opinion, and take it with a pinch of salt if you want to. I think the World Cup last season caused a lot of problems. I think last season was an intense season for everybody. I don't think the summer break is even a summer break. I can only talk from Man United, but we played the FA Cup final. The season started at the start of August. There was a World Cup, and we went right the way through. The FA Cup final was at the start of June. Then some of our players played international football until like the 20th of June, and then they're back in pre-season training in early July, and then we're back into this season. You can't do that to the modern footballer. You can't do it. I want to see Jude Bellingham playing football until his mid-30s. You are jeopardising careers, quality, development, all for what? For money. Money. And it's wrong. It's so wrong. At least in the NFL, they only play one game a week for 4 months because they think about the intensity and the impact it has on the players' bodies. In the Premier League, it's more. How do you like it? How do you like it? And I also think as well, and I've said this to you many times before, and I want you to get your comments in. Maybe some of you don't agree with me. Maybe you just want more football and you don't care who's playing. I would rather have 3 or 4 less games a season for Manchester United if it meant the best team was out more. I don't want loads of games and then my team's changing every week because of injuries and stuff like that. This season, actually, when I think about it, it's been very frustrating, the amount of injuries we've had and the lack of continuity. It's not a spectacle then. You want to see your team having chemistry and building patterns of play. I don't want to see more games but more changes. It's not what I want to see. And the other thing I'm going to call out as well, and maybe you'll agree, I've said this a few times to you on watch-alongs, and Crystal Palace Liverpool at the weekend took the biscuit. All these delays, all these stop-starts, 1 minute 45 to go back for a handball, 2, 3, 4 minutes to check if there was a foul in the build-up, offsides taking 3 or 4 minutes. these players, everybody presses from the front. Everybody plays intense football these days. They're running around more and more, with more intensity than they've ever done. And we're stopping the game more than we've ever done. I mean, it's obvious. If you go for a run and you really, 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 really push yourself, but then you keep stopping for 4 or 5 minutes and not just doing a couple of stretches and then you go again, I'm telling you now, there's more chances of you picking up injuries when you're stopping and starting and starting than there is if you just consistently keep moving at a regular pace. And this is what the Premier League have decided to do with their stupid idea of time wasting. We're going to deal with time wasting by adding more time on. We're going to make sure that our VAR is the worst in the world and make time add on and loads of stoppages. Some games are getting 15, 20 minutes added on to a 90-minute game. And if they're playing 2 or 3 games a week, that's another hour a week. In a couple of weeks, you played another game. It's incredible what we are doing to football. And also, for what? Most football fans want the game done in 90 minutes. They want the game to flow. We're slowing it down. It's damaging the spectacle and it's also damaging the players as well. I'm glad we've done this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please smash a like on the video. Please leave your comments below. It might not be as sensational as Mbappe's going to Real Madrid or the Super League's back or Man City have been charged. Or VAR needs to go. But I'm telling you now, this is a hidden problem in the Premier League that needs to come up to the front pages. Thanks everyone for watching. And please do check out the podcast, Goldbridge Saves Football. On this week, we're talking about who will get sacked first, Ten Hag or Poch, the Joey Barton debacle, Michael Owen's up for Pratt of the Week again, title race, either ors, loads. Give it a check if you've never listened to it, Goldbridge Saves Football. And get your comments in below and let me know what you think about this. Take care.